Cool.
Let me share the screen. So a quick question while I'm sharing my screen. How many of you have taken a chance to look at the code or the paper? Okay. Okay, so I'll try to kind of start from the simple stuff. Sharing the screen. Okay. So I think I cannot see right now because of the Zoom sharing everyone's reactions. So please talk to me if something is not right or you cannot see what I'm doing. You should be able to see the screen right now. Could someone confirm that you can do this?
Yeah, we can see the screen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. So first, what is the objective of Daedalus Turbo? It's to try to improve the synchronization time of the primary decentralized wallet in the Cardano ecosystem, Daedalus, which is managed by the EIG at the moment. And what it means, there are minimum 3 technical components that needs to be considered, analyzed. First is data transfer. So how the data can be quicker transferred over the network. But this is a reasonably simple problem, which is many solutions. So this is why it was posed to the next milestone. Then there is a topic of validation. But given the presence of existing EIG project Mithril, this is also a solved problem, right? So it's a hard problem, but it's already solved by an existing project. And therefore, for the proof of feasibility, the objective was to focus on the last remaining component. And this is computation of the derived data. And specifically for the wallets, this is wallet history reconstruction. And as a user, right, how you can perceive this problem. If you open your Daedalus, right, and synchronize it, and for example, I will be showing mine, I have a Daedalus without any wallets, right? And this is something you can replicate yourself. It's fully synchronized. But if you add at this point of time, synchronized means the data is already downloaded and validated. Add a new wallet, the reconstruction will take hours. And this is something I will be showing how it can be done much quicker today, right? So on a normal computer, it should be like a matter of minutes. On a server hardware, it can be even quicker. And this is basically the problem. And with this, I can prove that fast wallet history reconstruction is possible. And because Mithril already exists, and make the statement that overall 10x quicker sync is possible, right? So this is basically this story. And first, over the Twitter, there was shared paper and the code that implements the method of the paper. I'll share a link into the chat. So if you would like to have a look, this is the Twitter discussion. You can also see various opinions, right, of other people who taken time to look at it. But this is where you can find the link to the repository, and this is what I have on my left, and as well the paper. So first, I will just follow in all the instructions. So first, if you're interested in the paper, here it is, right? So the first link on the page. Then what you need to replicate this, Git, Docker, and a Daedalus installation with local data. I'll be showing you in Daedalus. If you open help Daedalus diagnostics, you can find the link Daedalus state directory. And this is exactly where Daedalus state files. And if you open this, right, so there'll be many, many, many different files. But what's important is the chain directory. And specifically within the chain directory, it's immutable, right? And if you open it, there will be like about 100 gigabytes of data and about 10,000 files, right? So this is what I have at the moment. It should be simple. So it's 97 gigabytes and 11,000 files. So this is how you know you have found on your local computer the path to the immutable DB, which is basically raw blockchain data created by the Cardano, right? And this is all you need. I provide some examples where you can find this typically, but this is it. A question: would somebody would like to try to replicate what I'm showing right now as I show it? Because if yes, do let me know. I may go slower, and if you have some hiccups, ask a question. I'll try to answer. Of course, if this will be something I can help with. Okay, then I'll just move forward. So the first step is basically to clone the repository. I'll be showing how I do this on the prepared server environment. So this is like exactly the same server I was using for the benchmarks in the paper. So it's quite powerful machine with 24 cores and 2 SSD drives bundled together into a RAID array, which is made it like a quicker EO system. So first, I simply clone the repository. Sorry, Zoom window makes it hard for me to see. Okay, just the typo. So now the data, the repository is cloned, so I just enter it, right? Then the next step is to build a Docker container, which helps to make the software fully kind of isolated and at the same time easy to build in exactly the same environment. So it's easy to reproduce it on any computer, right? So you can verify it like anywhere. So in my case, I was already doing this in the preparation for the demo, but typically you can expect that the Docker container should be built within like several minutes, right? The next step is to start it. And here is exactly where the data will be needed, which I was showing you before, right? So this path in the instruction called your immutable, you need to replace it with your path, local path with the immutable DB. So in my case, I have created two special directories on the server. They're called Cardano node and immutable. I will show you the data, right? So you can see there are like chunk files, primary, secondary. So this is the data that is there. And it's quite a big, right? So it's the same 11,000 files. I have slightly more. Why? I have additionally compressed chunks, which I use in experiment. And you can also check that you have the right directory by checking the size, right? It should be something on the scale of 100 gigabytes, right? So in my case, it's 129, but again, compressed chunk make it quite large. So now that I'm sure that I have the right directory, I need to understand where I would like to pulp the indices. So basically, how the method does. Scans the whole blockchain and creates pointers like a phone book in the end, which shows like which surnames are found on which page. It looks for which transactions and which wallet sticky keys are mentioned where in the blockchain. And it writes this into this second directory indices. And this is something you need to decide. And the simplest thing is to put it into the TMP directory right in the Daedalus Turbo folder. So, for example, I can create this and I will put it there. And now I copy this line, right? I change all the paths, right? So in my case, it's simply TP, right? And here I put the path to the immutable chunks. This is what you can find in your Daedalus diagnostic information data. Okay, so looks good. Which works. Okay, so then the first step is to double check that the data that was passed is actually available within the container. So I'll just quickly look if there are files in this directory. So yeah, 14,000 files sounds all right. So now I can just basically follow the instructions from the paper. So first I need to add the right access to the indices directory, because typically when you pass a volume to Docker, it's available for the root user, and here I'm working under a privileged user. But this is just a technicality. But basically what it does, it allows the software to write into the indices directory, which you can provide it here. And then it's the command to create indices, right? So here it is. And this is basically where the core of the method happens. So it scans for the raw blockchain data and creates those pointers where individual key keys are located. And here I'm using a powerful machine. So it will be reasonably quick. So what it does, it shows which stage of the method is working right now, how many active threads, and how many remaining tasks are there. And the reason why I'm showing right now on a quite powerful server is to show you that in comparison to Daedalus, growing more powerful hardware at the problem actually scaled it. So the whole blockchain was processed in 17 seconds. And compare this with the experience of running Daedalus, which is already synced, right? And then when it's already validated, right? So all the claims about validation is not applicable here. We'll speak about validation later. Daedalus takes 2 hours. And if someone has 5 wallets, 10 wallets, 20 wallets, it becomes a nightmare. And for this method, only one time you run the kind of construction indices, and then for any wallet, you can reconstruct something. So now I'll show you the reconstruction.
Alex, can I just pause you just for a second?
Yes, please, Chris.
Only for the audience, really. I think it'll be beneficial, and I know it's not your MO, but if you could just slow down just a little bit, just so people can
okay, appreciate the feedback.
Get to grips what you're actually demonstrating.
But
right?
Actually, this is a good point. A good way, if I'm going too fast, ask me a question. I'll definitely stop, right? Because right now, this kind of lack of feedback, even in the form of questions, make it hard me. Because right now I'm presenting, so I do not see most of the faces. So if I'm going too fast, ask me a question.
Yeah, fully appreciate that. Maybe before you go on, does anybody want to ask any question, like no matter how silly it might sound, no matter how big or small, if you just want to understand what the WTF as Alex just shown us on the screen, that's absolutely fine. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Alex. Sorry if this sounds kind of like, you know, below your pay grade kind of thing, but help me in a really simple way understand what's going on right now.
Yes, but I would like to hear a more specific question. So,
what am I looking at in terms of, is this being compiled locally, or is this being compiled on a more powerful server elsewhere? What's going on there?
Okay, so what I'm showing you is a console to remote server, right? As the second step, I will show you the same on my local laptop. But then, because I compile this software within a Docker container, right? So you check out the code. The code contains a description of a Docker container, which has been built. And after I have built it, right now I'm within that Docker container, which makes the environment reproducible.
Right. So within that Docker container, is that the full Cardano node being compiled in 17 seconds? Is that what you're saying?
No, there is nothing about Cardano node. What the method does, it takes the raw Cardano blockchain data, which is immutable DB. So this is something that Cardano node produces, right? But in fact, it's just a raw blockchain data that it receives over the network from other Cardano nodes. And then this software reads the whole blockchain, so those 100 gigabytes of data, and indices basically creates those references to which transactions reference a specific stake key. Why? So in the next step, it can reproduce a wallet's history. How? A user provides a stake key, and then it lists all the transactions that relate to that.
Alex, can I just pause you for 2 seconds, please, boss? I'm not trying to be rude, but you're going like really, really fast, and I can't keep up. I'm really sorry.
Okay. But ask me questions. I'll try to make slower. So
thank you.
I was speaking about what it does, right?
So just to bring you back to your point, so it's taking a number of snapshots of the Cardano blockchain and using those to recreate a proved complete version of the node?
I think snapshots is not the right word. So the reason I use this word technical index is basically it creates a list. Imagine the end of the phone directory, right? Where you have A, B, and then you have a surname and a page on which it's located. So in a way, what it does, it creates a list of all stake keys. And for each stake keys, it connects a list of all, let's say, files and byte offsets. It's a simplification.
That's every stake key.
Where they allocate.
That's every collective, because obviously wallets have like sub-wallet addresses and whatever, but that's basically it's creating a list of every Cardano wallet in existence. Is that right?
Correct, by a stake key. So this is kind of part of the simplification, but actually why it's a good simplification. So in a way, it's a huge list where on one part you have a list of kind of a stake key, right? On the other part, like you have actually a list of all places in the blockchain data. In my case, it's a number.
Right. What about wallets that don't have stake keys like enterprise wallets?
So I discussed this specifically in a paper, right? So exactly the same technology that right now indexes the kind of stake keys, right, can be used to index payment keys. There are some kind of minor performance implications because typically a wallet can have multiple payment keys, but still it will be like 10, 20. So because the performance is so much greater, it won't be a major kind of detriment to the method. And two, because we're speaking specifically about accelerating Daedalus. And Daedalus forces all users to use kind of just one state key, because there is no way you can change it. And B, all the addresses that it generates contain that state key, right? So this is, for Daedalus, this is perfect method, but the same technology that is underneath can be used for enterprise addresses as well. It's just not state keys needs to be indexes, but payment keys. A pause to see if I
okay. So let me get this straight. What it does is it takes a number of snapshots of wallets, right? State key wallets, but wallets, let's say, just to simplify things for people, right? And then it uses those snapshots of wallets to what? Rebuilds an accurate history of the blockchain from the latest version?
So for me, so in your description, the word snapshot confuses me, because it does not create a snapshot. It just creates a pointer, a reference to the location in the real blockchain where the whole data is located.
Index, all right.
Like a pointer or reference is a good word here, right?
Right.
Because it just references the blockchain, because it always kind of works as a companion to the full blockchain, right? It's just a list of pointers. Like there is no point in a phone book if you have just the index, but no the actual pages with the phone numbers and real people, right?
Right.
So here it just like it creates this kind of end of kind of phone book index and allows it to be used more efficiently. And basically, this is what this command have done, right? It parsed the whole blockchain in the 17 seconds and created indices to all references of all wallets. Of course, this is a very powerful machine, but what I'm showing is this scalability. You throw more powerful hardware, it works faster. And because
what would the average machine look like when doing this?
So my personal experience is about 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes,
okay.
Right? I will show you on my laptop. It's like 8-core CPU. It will be minutes, not hours, right? So this is where this massive advantage comes from.
So Alex, can we describe it in the following way then? Is what you're saying for an individual wallet, you're not so much interested in the history of the entire blockchain, but you're interested in all transactions that are relevant to your wallet. And you're kind of building an index to the transactions that are relevant for a particular wallet. And therefore, you can make the updates to that wallet much faster.
So first, yes, for an individual wallet, the history of individual transactions are important, correct. But what I'm doing here is slightly more. It builds a machinery like this kind of metaphor I used, this index in the end of the phone book that helps to reconstruct any wallet. For example, imagine your Daedalus has 10 wallets attached, right? Personal for your grandma,
Right, okay,
business,
so,
and so on. This index is created only once, but allows you to reconstruct the history of all wallets, right?
yeah,
And
okay.
this will be, I'll be showing in the next step. So it solves the problem you described, right? That for an individual wallet, only transactions related to that wallet are important. But at the same time, the machinery allows you to reconstruct any wallet.
So phrasing it just a little bit differently. So in other words, you kind of upfront build this index of the entire blockchain.
Correct.
And then for an individual wallet, rather than trying to reconstruct the whole blockchain, it now has this index in which it can select out the transactions.
And do it much faster, correct. Yes, I agree with this definition, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
And basically, this is where we are. We have built the index, and the next step is to try to reconstruct it. And this is what I'll show you. I have prepared several stake addresses, and I can take some of yours, and then we'll compare it with Cardano Explorer, right? So that everyone can get a feeling how it works and basically more belief. At the same time, if someone wants to try to kind of follow the instructions, let me know. Typically, it takes about 10 minutes, so it's not that hard. And this is why I'm kind of trying to show you so people start believing, right, that this is possible, because there are a lot of claims that what I'm doing is kind of impossible, right? And I'm doing my best to kind of prove with real things you can touch or try yourself, right? Because the code is there, the instructions are there, it's reasonably simple, that it's actually doable. And here,
Hey,
I will
go
to the second step. Yeah, please go.
So it sounded to me like essentially, you have that index, and then roughly you have, some memory of the wallet some memory of the blockchain that you download quickly, whatever you match against the index. But how does the Cardano node I guess is the Cardano node still has to verify by downloading blocks from everywhere else because, or from its peers essentially, because it still has to go through the process of validating each individual block at the end.
Okay, so the validation question. So first, full description. There is a section 4.2 in the paper. It discusses it more thoroughly. But
Alex,
very
do you mind
quickly,
if I get the paper and share it as a?
so this will be the next step. First, I would like to finish the live demo because seeing is believing. I would like everyone to believe it works.
Sure.
And then I would like to go more thoroughly in how it works, right? So maybe give me like 5 minutes. I'll show you and show how it works, and then we'll go into the paper and compare. But to answer quickly about the question about the validation, right? You can think about the whole synchronization step as having 3 components. 1, download data over the network. 2 is about validate the data, right? And this is what Cardano node does, and potentially can be done using Mithril or other approaches. And 3rd approach is where my method comes at the moment. And it reconstructs the wallet history quicker. And this is just milestone 1. So this is why right now I do only 1 component out of 3. But there is a whole set of steps how to solve all of them. And the reason why I'm doing this 3rd step is because Mithril is already there and it already solves first 2 points, right? So this is like the last remaining component, something that needs to be solved to prove the feasibility of the whole thing. Okay, let me quickly show how the reconstruction works, and then we can go deeper into the technical question.
Just before you move on, Alex, just to confirm, those 3 points were download the data, validate the data, and then the 3rd step was?
In my case, it's a wallet history reconstruction, but it can be generalized to compute derived data, right? So do something with the data you have downloaded and validated.
Got it. And so the step 3, just to underline that, is reconstruct the wallet history.
Correct. But at the same time, the problem can be experienced yourself. Install the Daedalus, let it synchronize, and add a new wallet and measure the time, right? So this is how you can personally experience that the problem is real. So right now I'm gonna add in a very simple case, just so that it's easy to compare. And then I show several harder ones. Sorry. So basically what the search index command does, it takes the path to the full blockchain data. In my case, this is immutable. Then it takes the path to the already created indices by the previous command, create index, and takes a state key. And it outputs to the console the list of the transactions that are generated by that wallet, right? And if you see, it works reasonably quick. Just second, bam, whole history is reconstructed. I'll show you some harder cases, but this is kind of the typical experience because 99% of all wallets in Cardano blockchain have less than 1,000 transactions. So this is method of using is extremely efficient, like for the majority of the users. And what you can see here is basically a list of transactions. So here is an epoch in which transaction happened, a slot number, transaction ID, which we'll be able to verify with Cardano Explorer in a moment. I'll open it in the second window. Then the transaction output that is used in flow, the amount in the ADA, and if the transaction has been spent or not, right? Because it's about UTXOs. And here is if it has been spent, transaction ID of the kind of spending transaction. And then it computes a full balance without rewards and presents them in the historical order. So it starts from the oldest transaction to the newest. And then it reports some information about the indices. So this is the last index plot. It's about like 2 months old snapshot, but we can do it on more recent, right? So the epoch 376. And some technical information about the cost. And this is not about the number of random reads. It's more like a technical metric, but it helps to estimate the complexity of the search. And here, the numbers are low, it's like in hundreds, so it's really, really simple. So right now, I will open a Cardano Explorer and compare the numbers, right? Because seeing is believing. So this is Cardano Explorer, and I'm sorry, C Explorer. I use it because it has better data on the rewards. Then I take exactly the same stake key, right? And I added to the search, sorry. So what you see, the total balance is 3 ADA, 3 ADA. And we can open the list of, I think, sorry, transactions, right? And compare those. So the C Explorer shows results, so the latest transaction first. So this is why I'll go from the bottom to the top. So if you see the first transaction starts with 3D and ends with A6, right? 3D, A6, right? The next transaction is 8B, E6. 8B, E6, right? The third transaction is C2, 2F. C2, 2F. The fourth is B0, 8D. B0, 8D. And 24, 3C. 24, 3C, right? And this is how you can personally validate this. The thing works, right? Download, build Docker, compare with Cardano Explorer, right? Don't take my word for it. So how I personally tested it. I took a ledger snapshot. So a Cardano node, in addition to the raw blockchain data, creates a snapshot of information it needs for internal work. And I took all the stake keys for which it computed the balances, took a random sample of 10,000 of them, and compared the reconstructed balances, and they precisely matched. So there could be potentially some small hiccups here or there, but all for the 99% of the cases, it should work very well. Caveat, right now it works only for ADA balances. So if you have some tokens or non-ADA balances, they will not be reflected here, but this is just a next step, right? So it's not because it's impossible, it's just planned for the next step. Okay, I'll stop here. Henrik, you have a question?
Well, I'll tell you what, just before Kenrick asked that, I just want to level set everybody's expectations as well, just in case you've joined the room a little bit late. What Alex has been demonstrating is the outcomes of Milestone 1, which was to build a proof of concept for Daedalus Turbo that is able to reconstruct the wallet history in a very fast time. Like that's me summarizing. There's nothing wrong with that, Alex.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I appreciate it.
So what we're not looking at is the final product, right? And I think it's important to say that.
It's a proof of feasibility. Like, so it's sufficient evidence that the project can be built and can achieve its promise, which is 10x quicker sync for Daedalus.
Cool. I'm gonna
Casey? Casey, you have your hand raised. I assume you have a question.
Oh, it was raised from last time.
Okay, not a problem. Does anyone else has a question? Okay, so now I show you several kind of other examples how it works, right? Because right now I started with a simple case, just one transaction, right? 5 transactions, right? Now I'll show you slightly more challenging example. It's like 1,000 transactions. Why? I'll just to show you the performance. Again, it's a powerful machine, but still compare it with ours that Daedalus creates. So here, because there are 1,000 machines, I will kind of write the results to a file, right? I use this special symbol, which basically moves all the kind of output that the command produces to a file, and I'll show you later. And this is a wallet with about 1,000 transactions. Something, let me see. There. Yep. Yeah, I think it's fine. There is just not the comment. So we constructed it, and but this is the same. And let me maybe open the big file so that you can see view. So basically, but a lot of transactions, right? You see, so basically the same 1,000 I was speaking about. And for each of them, it's possible to do exactly the same thing. Open the Explorer, look up this kind of transaction hash, validate belongs to this wallet. And then it basically shows you some statistics. So the same 1,000 transactions we're speaking about, right? And the total balance and some information about the cost to do it. And in this case, it was already 10,000 random reads, because this is basically this element of the complexity. But again, it did it like a matter of seconds. Let me do the kind of even harder case, right? Let's take a wallet with, I think, 10,000 10,000 transactions associated with the staking. Right, again, because it's big, I'm saving the result to a file. And in this case, I'll add time comment so that it's clear the time it took to do it. Here, for a second, it pauses. And again, around 1 second, it's done. I think in this case, it's slightly faster because I have already used the index for several previous commands, and it's already in memory. But generally, it may be about 10 seconds, but this is the scale of the performance. And 10,000 transactions, right? 99.99% of all wallets have less than 10,000 transactions, right? So basically what this means is this method, when supported by good hardware, can reconstruct wallet history like in 10 seconds. Of course, there will be some cases where, right? So here you see it's like a really, really huge file with those 10,000 transactions, just scrolling, and you can do the same, right? And if anyone interested, I can share the stake keys I have personally used, but I think to really trust it, you need to select your own stake key. You really know, for example, your wallet or something else. And because stake key is a public information, there is no risk that some private information will be lost, and compare the results. And I think this is how you most likely start believing this works and how it works, right? And here I show it, it's 10,000 transactions. And in this case, it required 68,000 random reads to achieve it. Okay, I'll pause here. This is
I was
how
going
it
to
can be
say,
validated.
Mr. Shark has given you an address to try.
Yes, Mr. Shark, what can I do for you?
Yeah, could you throw that address in and see what happens?
Can you look in the chat, Alex? I don't know if you're. If you got it open.
Okay, yeah, just a second. Yes, Mr. Shark, I do.
Yeah, this one has.
Okay, Mr. Shark, this is not a stake address. So stake address should be starting with stake one something.
Right, you need the stake address. Give me 2 seconds.
Not a problem. Yeah, take your time.
post.
Anyone else would like to check it?
I got a question while they're doing that.
Yep.
Are you pulling UTXO data too, or?
So if you see, I don't call it like UTXO data, but I collect information about which transactions are being spent. If you see there is transaction, and there's information if it's spent or not. And basically,
Well, the only reason I asked that, if you don't know your inputs, then you can't really use your wallet until you have them.
I'm sorry, could you repeat this question?
If you don't know your UTXO inputs, you can't really use your wallet till you have them.
So let's start. So UTXOs are all transactions that you have received but not spent, correct?
Well, yeah, it's the most active state. And so if the data set's pre-compiled and you don't have the most, you see what I'm saying? So you've got to get
Okay,
that.
so how
gotta
often
be
do you
on
need to
tip.
refresh the data? So it's about the updating the index, right? So this is your question.
Well, if the point's having a wallet that's fast and I can use it fast, you don't just need the balances in the transaction history. You need the on tip, what's happening right now, your live UTXO data. Otherwise, you can't spend a UTXO, which makes it not usable.
And there are 2 prerequisites to that. One is for each transaction that kind of provides you money but funds you, like to know if it's spent or not. So basically, if it is a UTXO or not. And this method already does it. And the second part, you need your data to be up to date. And in this case, because the method is so fast, it can re-index the data in the same seconds or minutes. And in the next milestone, incremental indexing is also will be possible. So basically, in my view, both prerequisites are met. First, the method shows you specifically, which transactions are UTXOs and which are not, and re-indexing or updating, right, to be at the tip of what's going on in the blockchain is fast.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you have any demonstration or argument for how this system behaves kind of in the presence of malicious actors? That's either peers lying about the history of the chain when you're downloading the chain initially, or something that has modified your local DB in between restarts to potentially create a malicious view of the world.
Okay, so let's start from kind of first step. So this is only index reconstruction data. So it use pre-validated data. As I said, it can be received from Mithril, it can be received from Cardano node, and the paper section 4.2 presents a vision for faster parallel validation, right? But basically, at the moment, this is only milestone 1. We assume the data pre-validated, but there are many ways to do this. Take it from Cardano node, take it from Mithril, or run some custom parallel validation. Now, answering your second question about what happens if the server is compromised. Nothing, right? So basically, once your server is compromised, anything can be done to it. And this is not the question of just only this method. It's problem of any software. If someone reasonably qualified,
one of the to cut in, one of the benefits of a full node, and one of the reasons people run a full node, is because on startup, it does do checking to validate the integrity of that database. And when it talks to its peers, it can recognize whether its tip has significantly diverged, and it can recover from that state. So if this is not kind of validating the integrity of its on-disk database, and it is just assuming that, yes, it's faster, but you have given up something compared to what
Correct.
like a Cardano full node does.
But there are already solutions to that, right? So the problem you're solving, for example, Cardano not already does it. There is Mithril project. I'm not sure if you're aware about this. It's
Yeah,
about
I'm very familiar.
Okay, nice. But there are approaches. What you're saying, like verifying the ledger state, right? Just computing the hashes of the blocks on the startup and verifying them and comparing them with what's going on the chain. It's also reasonably quick. It can be done in a matter of seconds, right? So it's just a matter of the SSD performance and so on. But what I'm saying is right now, I was not looking to this into milestone 1, but I will look into the next milestones because already other projects solve this. So for the proof of feasibility, I do not need to reprove this. But
Okay.
you're raising the right question.
I think it is an important part of your original proposal. The original proposal talked a lot about downloading blocks in parallel and being able to validate the chain. But it's really exciting to see that this is, that this is so much faster than like just for the, I don't know how much time Daedalus spends purely in this step. My understanding was that the bulk of the time Daedalus spends is in that, robust validation of the chain that isn't demonstrated here. But if you had exact numbers on how much, like an apples to apples comparison, it is pretty cool to see this fast. So good job on that. Just wanted to be clear that this is a little bit of a different target that is being aimed at than was originally described in the.
But let's be straight, because you're challenging me on the full deliverable, right? The full deliverable is for the full proposal. As I said, 3 components: data download.
Sure, no, and I understand that. I understand that, but
and this is just
I think that's where the hard part of the problem is. So this is exciting, but
why do you think it's hard? Don't you trust Mithril, or you think it's that solution?
Well, I think Mithril is a separate solution, right? I think Mithril is a great way to bootstrap light clients, but it does not provide a full node, right?
Okay, we're coming here into definition of a full node. How do you personally define what is a full node? What are the properties of a full node?
Well, so for example, you cannot produce a Mithril signature from what I was about to say may not be true, but the point is a full replication and validation of the blockchain history is not provided by Mithril. Mithril provides specific snapshots, not a valid, like an authoritative source of the full history, right? So
I disagree with this, because what it does, Mithril provides you with the full copy of the blockchain and an assurance, right, in the form of the signed cryptographic signature, right, that confirms that the full copy of the blockchain that you have received were signed by.
Mithril doesn't sign a full copy of the blockchain; it signs the UTXO at specific snapshots.
But it provides you with a signature. I don't want to go to the technicalities, but in a way, the full copy of the blockchain is part as an artifact, right? So you download the full copy of the blockchain, and you receive from an external source such as Mithril a confirmation that what you have downloaded is actually reasonably valid. You can trust it. So in a way, you have
I think Mithril is a great project. So we're not arguing there. Like I said, I think what you've built is great, and that's exciting. I don't want to kind of trigger any defensiveness. I just also wanted to provide context for people who are maybe a bit less technical and watching this.
Okay, I think I lost what I was saying. We're speaking about the reconstruction of the history, and I was finishing. So basically, that anyone can compare this method in about 10 minutes, right? So all you have to do is like Docker, Git, and a local copy of the raw blockchain data, right? And then using any external blockchain explorer, or even comparing transactions with your own copy of Daedalus, it can be done. It doesn't require any private information, right? Because it uses stake keys, which is public information. You shouldn't be concerned about trusting this unknown software, your private keys. No need to do so.
Alex, you said earlier that it was about 99% accurate. Do you think a 1 in 100 failure rate is acceptable for a full node wallet?
I'm sorry, could you repeat this?
So you said earlier in your presentation that it was about 99% of the time that it would work. Do you think a 1 in 100?
I didn't say precisely. So let me rephrase it. So I tested it on a random sample of 10,000 stake keys, right?
And of those
100% but I didn't test on all of them, right?
Okay.
The reason I did it and proving feasibility that the method I'm presenting is working. I'm not saying that this is the final solution. You should put all your money, right?
I'm not.
This will be the
I'm bullish
part of
on
the
it.
next milestones.
I'm bullish. I'm not even attacking. I'm just asking. So you've tested on 100 on what 10,000
random state keys.
Okay, and of those 10,000 random state keys, 100% came through
correct
positively.
Yes.
Good. Okay, so you're saying that you've established proof of concept. You've established that functionally it works. Is this as trustworthy as in your mind? Two questions. Is this as trustworthy as Daedalus? Could I say, well, I have Daedalus Turbo, which is trustworthy as Daedalus? And the second question I'd ask is it does this feasibly scale to every wallet? I mean, I sent your wallet address with 2.3 million transactions. Would it be able to process that as well?
Okay, so you're actually the second person who challenges me with this, right?
Right.
So yes, it can, because it has so many transactions. It can take several minutes, but still it's not hours. And in my personal opinion, I think there are only 14 stake keys on the whole blockchain that have more than 100,000 transactions. So it's a special case. And even in this case, it does reasonably well. So it's minutes. In my opinion, if someone were to make an optimization, a full parallel scan is better for such huge enterprise addresses, but still method can handle it.
So and for the sake of everyone else listening, in your own words, could you summarize in a single sentence? And I know that it's a very complex idea. Could you summarize in a single sentence what your deliverables are as far as you see them compared to what you've written previously for the Catalyst proposal?
So let me refine your question. So are you asking about the final deliverables of the whole project, or the deliverables of Milestone 1? Because there are two big things.
That's a fair question. I'm asking, as of today, just so that we can cross-reference it with the original proposal you made, right? What is the deliverable of this project? And obviously, what progress have you made?
So specifically in the proposal, you can find fast algorithm for wallet history reconstruction. Originally, it was planned as milestone 2 or 3, but because of the discussions with the IOG and the presence of Mithril, the order was changed. So I have started from the algorithm instead of the downloading. So it's the same deliverable, just the order was changed based on the consultations with the IOG.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So, setting aside, I totally understand this is a first milestone deliverable. Again, I've said I think it's pretty impressive how fast it works. I'm not trying to, come for you and your children. I'm just curious. You kind of are placing a lot of emphasis on stake addresses. How does this handle enterprise addresses, or how does it handle wallets where the keys, are using derivation paths and like addresses that are not attaching that stake address, or multiple accounts or things like that?
So I think this is a good point for me to stop sharing my console and start sharing the paper because it discusses it. But let me share a link to the Twitter thread where the link to the paper and the code is present. Okay, so this is the link. By following, you will find the repository, and the first link in the README of the repository is the paper. And this is what I will be showing. So this is something you should learn when you follow the link. And here is the link to the paper.
Where did you post that link?
In the chat, in the Zoom chat.
I'm not seeing it.
The Twitter thread. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I didn't post it to everyone. Sorry, everyone. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry, Michael. Yeah, I posted to you personally. I think now it should be available to everyone. Please confirm.
Yep, I'd see it.
Cool. So basically, by following the link, you can get to the repository. Let me show this one time, right? And the first link in the about section is actually the paper. This is what I'm opening right now. And your question was about the data structure of the indices, right? And the second about how does it work with addresses without
I don't care about
keys, right?
I care about.
That was my question. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
In the chat, I wondered how does this data structure work that it is so much faster. Sorry. I will not interrupt you again. It's just that
I just want to understand, like, so you would like to hear first about the data structure, right? I just need a confirmation.
Yes,
I can answer what questions.
it's maybe interesting.
Okay, so I think the first step, it's not the data structures and magic. I'm showing you the paper. Let me show quickly the contents, right? So the method describes basically the nature of the method, and there are several components. So section 2.3 specifically describes the indexing process, and section 2.4 the structure from disk indices. And to answer your question, there is nothing very special about the data structure. I just used some reasonable tricks. For example, take a look. So the method creates 3 indices. First index, I call it address.
Alex, can I interject real quick?
Okay.
Sorry, I got disconnected briefly. Yeah, no, I think the data structures are really interesting, and I'm but my question was less about the data structures and more about, have you thought about, considered, or can you make an argument for how this is going to handle
enterprise addresses?
Not a specific stake address, right? Because that's not how wallets identify the addresses that they care about. They start from a private key and enumerate the derivations.
I heard the question. I will get to in a minute because someone else, and I'm sorry because I cannot see who asks which question, right? So this is where the confusion comes. Asking me about the data structure. And I think this is a good lead to answer a question about how to handle other addresses. So just bear with me like for 2 minutes and I'll answer it as well.
Yeah. And first of all, I just want to also welcome Pi and others that are contributing to this discussion. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. And also thanks to Alex for being open and willing to be challenged and be challenging at the same time. So this is a really good environment for discourse and discussion. So really,
yeah, and thanks for having us.
Not a problem. Actually, I enjoy good pointed questions as long as they are just rational. This is it, right? So the index creates three components. So the first thing, it takes a list of all stake addresses and it creates what I call reference, but it's basically a transaction of set in the space of all chunk files. It's usually a number which shows from which byte to read the information. And what it helps, having a stake key to find all transactions that reference it. Then there is a second index, which given a transaction hash and the transaction output index, find if any transaction use this as an input. And this is to determine what is UTXO and what is not. And the third one is just a block index, which information about meta information about the blocks, which is needed to establish time, epoch, and things like this. And this is very simple on this structure. Each index is just a fixed size array of those elements. And the reason why this method is so fast is because it's created in a very parallel way that minimize inter-thread locking. I can discuss it later, but and it's discussed in the paper, but this is the reason. So basically, it just does simple thing, but well. And now I'm getting to the question about the other types of addresses. So specifically section 4.1, right, directly addresses. And I have considered multiple cases, right? So a case when there are multiple stake keys, right? So for example, a user, according to Cardano specification, can have multiple stake keys. And in this case, what it would mean, the program or the software such as Daedalus or other would need to do 2 or 3 or 4 index lookups, right? So compare this to the execution of this command line I was doing. So it will be slightly slower, but it still won't be hours. Now, speaking about a situation where there are some malicious users, right? For example, there is a correct stake address, but incorrect and related payment key. So again, we can identify all the transactions by stake key, and some of them will be bad. And we can simply verify if the payment key matches the transaction path. Why? We are analyzing only a small fraction of all transactions of the blockchain. So this is something that can be done in a reasonable time. And if I'm going too fast, remind me of that. I'll repeat. So then there is a case when there is a correct payment address, but unrelated stake key, right? So this is a hardware case. But here, a solution can be to index the whole blockchain, not by stake keys, but payment keys. And because according to the HD wallet specification, one wallet can have multiple payment keys. The solution is basically the same. It's do multiple index lookups. But in this case, I think it can be 100 index lookups, not just one as for stake key. So it will be slower. So maybe it will be like 10 seconds or 15 seconds, but still it won't be hours. And the same answer about indexing by payment address is the answer for no stake key, or what you call enterprise address. And to summarize, this method can be applied to all types of addresses. For some cases, it can be slower, but it will be like slower by a constant, right? It won't be something that will make it like work hours. And at the same time,
yeah, and is that just to clarify, is that 10 seconds on startup, or 10 seconds each time it needs to access these indexes?
So each time the full, and I can emphasize this, the full wallet history needs to be reconstructed, because obviously the indices can be updated and in incremental fashion, right? So it's 10 seconds when you do it for the first time, right? Like you install the fresh copy of Daedalus.
Well, post ledger validation, but
correct. Yes, correct.
Okay.
But basically, take a look at this section. In my view, it generally addresses this. And because Daedalus works in a way that it fixes the user with just one stake key and all just smashing it, I think it's a perfect solution and really fast and without no practical downside specifically for Daedalus users. Right? And this is why it is implemented. Okay, let me pause here. Any other questions? Okay, I see some questions in the chat. Seems like important questions is where the index is stored. Okay, so the index is stored locally. It's just something that is stored close to the local copy of the blockchain. So the size of the index is about like 10% of the blockchain data. So it increases the requirements. But for exactly this reason, because blockchain is already big, I tested using LD4 compression. It's a very fast compression algorithm. And it basically what it does, it can decrease the size of the local blockchain data from 100 gigabytes to 50 gigabytes without almost not affecting the performance of reconstruction. And this is basically this section 3.4 compares the result. If you see, so the orange kind of graph is the performance with compressed data, and the blue one with uncompressed data. And initially on low trip counts, it's slightly slower, but it's insignificant. But as soon as the kind of performance, so you have so many threads that your local SSD or your local IO system cannot keep up, actually working with compression even improves performance. And this is what happens after this red line. So this red line is an estimation of the sequential read speed of the local SSD system.
Thanks,
So
Alex.
it can basically requires 10% more data, but the data can be compressed. So still the whole Daedalus installation can be still kept within the same kind of original requirements of the original Daedalus.
Thank you, Alex. I have a follow-up question then. If every wallet is storing this entire index, why do you get a speed up? I mean, it doesn't, I'm not seeing like, so part of what you're saying is that there's a way to avoid having to replicate the entire blockchain in the wallet.
No, this is not what I'm saying.
Replicating an index, and then from that index, you're producing the part of the blockchain history that's relevant to that particular wallet. But if every wallet has to have this index, I'm not sure where, I'm not seeing exactly where the speed up comes from.
So let me kind of slightly reformulate this. So this index helps to quicker find. So this is like maybe magnifying glass is a better example or better analogy, but something that helps you find something faster. And the trick is that this index is a really quick to create, and it helps to reconstruct them, the history of any wallet. And this is especially important for the case where users use multiple wallets of Daedalus. For example, one of the users, if you look in the Twitter thread, with 20 wallets, so the Daedalus is really slow. It's keeping up the updates of this history. And potentially, I could use the same tools. I call it parallel search, where basically I use all the CPU cores to quickly parse through the blockchain and to find the relevant transaction. and send one. So this is one method for wallet history reconstruction. The problem with it, it's limited to kind of one wallet. And the method I present, because of 10% of space, can support multiple wallets.
Okay.
I'm not sure I fully answer your question because
Yeah,
I got into the details.
One way to see it then is that what you're saying is that it's not actually the replication of the blockchain that's slow. It's the search through the blockchain of the information you care about.
At the moment, so the way Cardano wallet, which is the component of Daedalus, is implemented, yes. And you can verify this, simply synchronize Daedalus, and after it's synchronized, create a new wallet and measure the time till it's fully kind of synced the wallet. I mean.
Okay, Alex, you're evidently highly intelligent and beyond certainly myself. But let me ask you a question. When it comes to possible attack vectors, what would you say were the and obviously you've thought this through extensively, so I'm sure you'll be able to identify some potential weaknesses to this product. What are the possible attack vectors, and what is the, let's say, the minimum viable or the minimum resources required to destabilize this particular method of constructing a snapshot of the node?
So I appreciate the question, and full disclosure. So the analysis of the trust model is milestone 3. And the reason is that I would like to make this method at least as stable as Daedalus. And for that, I'm trying to get a list of attack vectors from the IOG. So I can basically go check, done. And I have not received it yet, right? And because my first step was to prove that it's possible to make it fast, think of this as a kind of upper bound on the performance, right?
Yeah.
Once I can prove that, in the next milestone it will be done. But the reason I cannot tell you question, first, it's planned for future, and I do not have actually a comprehensive answer. And 2, I would like to do it by looking at the list of attack vectors that IOG explicitly analyzed and protected from, and do specific countermeasures for that as well. So one of the deliverables for milestone 3 will be a specification of trust models. So basically, where I do something differently than Cardano node or Cardano wallet does, and some analysis how big a risk it is. But this is not something I'm ready to talk right now. It's just milestone 3.
Okay.
Let me. I have a question. So, and you may go into this in the paper. You just linked it to me, so I haven't had a chance to go through it. But just to ask you here, my worry here is that it's possible there is a apples to oranges comparison happening, in that, I haven't seen an exact breakdown of where Daedalus is spending its time versus, syncing the blockchain versus validating the ledger state versus just looking up transactions by wallet. Have you like isolated that from Daedalus and measured the performance of looking up the transactions associated with a specific wallet?
Correct. So
to compare that?
The kind of section I'm showing you, like wallet history construction time 3.3, it takes pre-synced Cardano node and only then launches the Cardano wallet. And if you go to the repository, can you see my screen?
I cannot, no. My may just be because I'm broken. I don't know if others.
But basically, in the kind of repo, there is experiment directory and there is bench Cardano wallet subdirectory, and there you can find precise script how Cardano wallet was benchmarked, and it was done in the following way. So first, Cardano node was fully synced, then cut off from the internet, so it doesn't do anything additional, and then a new wallet was added to Cardano wallet, and then the time till Cardano wallet reports that it's synchronized to the given kind of tip was measured. So basically, you can find the whole script, how it was measured, directly in the repository. It's experiment subfolder and bench Cardano wallet.
And do you know if they're like, because again, without understanding what Daedalus does when it is syncing a new wallet, there may be features that are lost there that make it not an apples to apples comparison. And I think that if that comparison is apples to apples, this is really cool. But given, like you have mentioned several times, it's just some basic indexing and stuff, and I know that the folks over at IOG are very smart. It's hard to imagine they wouldn't be doing that already.
So I cannot
and
speak for
so-
them, right? What I did, I have sent the paper to all people from the whom I met and who are responsible for the wallet and asked for feedback. Two,
Yeah, no, and so I would
specifically,
love to.
I analyzed
to
the UI of
understand-
Daedalus and
Can I-
analyzed
yeah,
which meta information is used.
Alex, let me finish what I was saying. So I think, again, what you've done is impressive. I would love to understand if there is anything that is being given up in order to achieve this performance. And I think that's what the Daedalus team, I hope they publish a response of saying, hey, yes, these are equivalent apples to apples comparisons, or no, this is faster because it is, for example, not validating signatures or something like that. And so that would be a really interesting data point to understand.
I hope that's true, right? Because this is the reason why the whole source code and the paper is open for the review. Because yes, some things can be missed, but at the moment, and again, we are not speaking about validation because it's a future milestones. And analyzing just the UI of Daedalus, all the critical information
but
reconstruct history is there.
If we're comparing and we're drawing conclusions from the increase in speed, it's just, regardless of whether that's a future milestone or not, it's important to understand, right? Because if you cut out a huge chunk of something,
correct, but
then
how would you verify it?
You haven't proven viability, right?
How would you verify it, right? What is the procedure that would make you sure?
Well, I mean, I would just understand what both are doing and if they are accomplishing the same goals. Like, for example, if the Daedalus wallet is providing that extra security by validating all of the cryptographic signatures, then you can't really say that you've proven that a huge improvement over Daedalus because you're giving up validation of the cryptographic signatures, which is a really important part of it, right?
Because signatures are validated by the Cardano node. So if after Cardano node has already validated the signatures, wallet does it again, I would argue that this is not that valuable.
I would argue that it's still valuable if you are if you're presenting that to the user, right?
No, what's the point of validating the same thing second time?
So
maybe
my
it's
point
a point
is,
of argument, right?
and
Let's agree this. But what I'm saying that all these things,
Alex, it's
other.
I love what you've done. It's a little frustrating when you get this defensive over pushback. All I'm saying is that I would love to see from the Daedalus team an exact breakdown of what goes into that syncing, and then we can make that determination on which steps are necessary and which steps can be cut, etc. Right? And it's just
please understand.
It feels like we can't make a full comparison until we have that data.
What you're asking is an abstract question, not a specific challenge. And because it's unspecific,
absolutely. Yeah.
I cannot specifically show you is it true or false, right? And what you ask me is something that maybe the Daedalus team or the IOG can do, right?
Yeah,
I'm saying
absolutely.
that I've done my best so that there is no kind of
sure. And I think you're approaching this as I'm challenging you or attacking you. I'm trying to provide extra context for people who are listening, who want to understand, okay, is this valuable? I think it is. How can we understand exactly how valuable it is, right? And so I'm not challenging you on anything. I'm saying I think this is an extra piece of context that would be very valuable. Yeah,
I guess what would make it even kind of better for me is if you can bring specific attack vectors that you would like us to discuss, because otherwise, without only abstract conversation, there is no action items that can be taken as long as just let's wait for the IOG review. But if there were specific attack vectors or something specific I can work with, that would make it
right. And I'm not on the Daedalus team, so I can't provide those, right? But just for those who are listening, who want to understand what are the next steps and what should you be looking for in the future from Daedalus or from Alex, these are the kinds of things that I would expect to see in like a future follow-up meeting.
Okay, let me make a pause for other questions.
Can I jump in?
You do.
Every time I hear you talk, it seems like you are making different decisions that IOG is aware of, but chose not to make. So why are we confusing the user base by calling this Daedalus? Why doesn't this have a different name? Daedalus is open source, right? You can fork it and call it something else, no?
I'm trying to so is your question why I'm calling this Daedalus?
Yes, why are we? Because we're mixing the brand and the choices you've made, IOG are aware of these choices. They chose not to make them.
I'm not fully sure of that.
You've
And this is the reason I
exposed
have
it
made
to
this,
them,
and I'm
right?
sharing it with them so they can
You've
challenge me
exposed
and
it to
confirm.
them. Well, you've
Right?
exposed. I mean, Charles have acknowledged some of your challenges.
I have
And-
sent him multiple times. I haven't heard from him, but it doesn't mean that he has a specific argument. At the same time, this has been shared
So
publicly.
do you think this is like, is this supposed to be a dead? Where does this fit in the ecosystem of Daedalus? Is this supposed to be a Daedalus thing, or is it
Okay, let me get back to this question, because you can ask him two questions. One is, am I sure that your team is aware of these choices? I'm not, no, only they can answer this, right? So maybe the better way is to ask them, and all my materials are there. Second question, should it be Daedalus? My whole reason and the way I understand this proposal is there is a huge demand to make Daedalus faster. So the tool that those many people use. And what I'm trying to do as open source way to make it faster, right? So the whole idea here is to create something that is good enough and fast enough so it can be integrated into the official repository and become part of the core Daedalus, so that the whole user base of Daedalus can benefit from the performance.
So the agenda is to integrate it into the current Daedalus open source repository.
The final milestone, yes, correct.
I see. Oh, well, in that case, well, then who do you need buy-in from to do that? Like,
so this is maybe like, first I need to prepare a proof of concept, right? So what I've done right now, I have proven that it's possible to quicker reconstruct wallet history, but this is only one component out of three, right? Then there is network transfer, and then there is validation. And this is what will be this full proof of concept. And having this, there is a whole discussion, and there is a whole year reserved to work out with IOG and integrate it. And already right now, IOG has a dedicated reviewer who reviews this project. And it's open source, and the information is shared online, right? So everyone can chime in and provide their feedback. And the plan is to integrate it. And this is the whole idea, so that it benefits if I can prove it is there and can be done without major risks, right? So this question.
Okay, so I guess going back to the other half of the question, whether or not IOG is aware of the choices, maybe that's something they can answer, right? Because it sounds like there is not consensus that this should go into Daedalus. When
I would say even more, there is not enough consensus on if Daedalus can be made quicker. And this is what I'm trying to do my part by sharing this data publicly, so that more and more people can understand what is possible to do quicker.
Right.
And hopefully, the next step there will be
there
consensus.
might be.
If it is possible.
Well, I'll leave with this and then be quiet. Daedalus, I don't know if. So Daedalus is open source. Like I think you might get more adoption if this was its own thing that people were using, right? I feel like there's an uphill battle to get this into Daedalus, right? Do people want Daedalus to be faster, or do they want a full node wallet that's fast, right? If this is a full node wallet that's fast, I still don't know if it needs to be like forced onto the Daedalus pathway, but I understand what you're going for.
Could you clarify? So the word forced, because the plan is to, in the first rollout, enable this as an option, right? Enable turbo mode or not, right? So no one who doesn't want it, or they want to stick to the old verification history, they can do this. At the same time, through the POC, there is a hope to make it both faster and have similar trust properties as a Daedalus, and then provide it as an option. Right, and when there is a high adoption of that option, maybe it can be switched as the default.
Right. Well, Daedalus has, is it 2 or 3 different flavors, right? So again, I still think a separate binary might be a better first step.
For the POC, yes, but to achieve the impact, I still believe it's important to integrate this to really bring this value to the users.
Which milestone is a POC that's installable as a binary?
So the POC is a third milestone. So we are right now milestone 1, so quick wallet history construction. Milestone 2 is review and analysis of the networking protocol, so how the data can be downloaded quicker, right? Third is this full-blown POC, which will include the trust model, validation, feature completeness, and so on, right? It will be a separate, I wouldn't say binary, but a separate tool that a user can download and experience. And the first milestone is to integrate all of this into official builds.
I lied. One last question. How many other developers have you been able to what's the word, inspire or to contribute to the work?
You know, I have not been working on this yet. My first step is just to show real evidence that this works, right?
No. I just mean, is it just you, or have you been able to bring other people on?
I was not working on this. So my ideal, and here I'm a contrarian, that the best team to kind of achieve a kind of result is the smallest one. And on the stage of the initial conception, I'm working just with 1 or 2 other people who mostly challenge me so I can move forward. On the stage of POC,
this is what I'm saying, though. I think there's strength in numbers, right?
What do you mean,
so
1 or 2? It's a 1 or 2. It's not a fucking different.
Well, let's not focus on the. My point here is it would be good, because right now, whenever I've come across this conversation, it just feels like it's Alex versus the world, right? It would be good if there was 10 people. That was 10 people versus the world, right?
But why?
So maybe instead of going straight to IOG, maybe we can bring on other minds that think like you, right? Convince second person, third person, fourth person, you know, because it feels people are not. It's not just IOG. The community isn't with you because it seems like you're alone.
So first, I think this is not precisely correct representation, right? So I believe the underlying problem here is that IOG was not dedicating enough focus to the topic of performance. And this is the reason for the vote, in my opinion. You can disagree with this, but this is my opinion.
No, I get that.
That it could be done more, but it's not. And right now, my goal is to do enough to prove this. And how to do this is my personal choice, right? As long as I deliver. So what's important
but
is
you
not
need,
how,
you need consensus, though. Consensus has to be not just between you and IOG. Like, there's lots of engineers in the space. Don't you feel like you need consensus from other people?
But consensus on which question? Can 10x quicker synchronization be done without serious problems to the trust? It's a scientific question. What you're speaking about, the consensus about adoption, you're right. But this is a different topic.
No, not adoption, like peer review and acceptance. Like, before IOG accept, is there others of your peers that can also, next time we're in this conversation, it would be great if there's 3 people with you instead of just you still.
But what it changes for you?
No, not for me. It makes it so that, I mean, again, going to adoption, right? So part of why there's trust in, say, Daedalus, there's not just one person that's made those choices. There's dozens of people who's contributed to Daedalus, right?
Let me ask you a question. Bitcoin, a paper, but anonymous person. Is it important for you to know it was a collective or just one person, as long as the whole improvement and change was brought?
It's more important to know that it's been peer review and people of the same.
Alex,
This
could
is
I
fair.
address
Peer review is
Carol's
there.
question?
I'm sorry, Kenrick, is it you?
You're asking good questions, Jonathan, but if I could just step back from this particular process and kind of, put it in the context of different approaches to engineering and science, there's obviously a lot of merit in the community effort and the IOG leadership that went into creating Daedalus. But it's also true that sometimes it takes an independent scientist to see through a difficult problem and create an original solution. Now, at the same time, when someone makes a bold claim like Alex has made, it's completely reasonable for the community to have skepticism about the claim. And obviously he has, the community has been very skeptical about what he's claiming. But I think today is a good step where, he's obviously, done some work now and he's presenting his evidence and it looks like he's bringing some original ideas to the problem. He still has more work to do to kind of get to his proof of concept milestone. But I think this is where, the power of sort of a global community kind of shows through, that he's been given some resources to try to prove out this bold claim. He might end up being wrong. The community might be right, but it's a risk and it's a worthwhile risk to kind of look at this. So then also and then I'll pause, but also with regard to whether building a separate product or building it into Daedalus, I from my perspective as a researcher myself, it's not realistic for a small research team to try to go to market with a new product. That's not the role of a scientist. So I can kind of sympathize with Alex's point of view that he's not trying to work on the marketing of a new product. He's trying to bring an innovative idea to improvement of the Daedalus product. And if he can prove that out, then it's going to be up to IOG and the community to actually implement it and roll it out as another iteration of Daedalus. I don't think that's what the research team would focus on. Anyways, so for some
those are a great point, Kenrick. It's just, even as a small research, I feel like if you make a bold claim, there is still the mandate that your peer needs to be able to prove that claim out somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's part of what he's doing by writing papers, by presenting the results, and then addressing questions from the community. That's part of the peer review process.
Well, let's look at the Catalyst process for a second. I think Session Cruz makes a really good point. I mean, we all know. I mean, it's kind of like a poorly kept secret at this point that Catalyst is tremendously corrupt. So Alex, what do you think it was about your proposal that got these 2,000 wallets to vote, despite the very strong opposition to your proposal?
I specifically kind of brought this topic, right? So there are diverse opinions, and today I would like to focus only on the technology, right? You can write it on Twitter, you can discuss it either way. Personally, I find it unproductive because it's already funded, and my goal is to deliver this to those who voted for it.
It's funded subject to you meeting the criteria.
Correct.
It's
and
funded
my objective is to
subject
deliver,
to you meeting the milestone.
Right? And speaking about the delivery and the problems with the project and the technical issues is the way to make this discussion. So as long as this is not related to the technology, I'm sorry, I believe it's out of topic.
Do you have a question about the technology? I kind of agree. It's a separate discussion as to the process for Catalyst. And that's a worthwhile discussion too, but it wasn't the intent of this meeting, and it's not appropriate to put it on Alex. That's for the community work on and the people designing the Catalyst program to work on. It's not really Alex's issue.
I'd also like to just chime in real quickly to Darlington's point, that if IOG decides not to implement this into Daedalus, there's an opportunity for another community member to help Alex with the marketing and perhaps create a new wallet.
Yeah.
That's also,
or one of the competing wallets. Any of the wallets could use the technology if they find it to be proven to work.
Thank you. And just to kind of share my perspective, maybe to better said it, I see my key goal is to show that it's possible, so that the AG, because they have much more resources than any independent research, right? So that they pay more attention to the topic of performance. Because in my view, there is much more that can be done. And if this outcome is achieved, maybe not integrated directly, but they at least see and understand the methods and see that there is this dramatic improvement, the next tools that they will be building will be faster, and this will be saving user time, likely the most precious resource of all our lives.
If your goal is only to show that it's possible, do you think it's worth reevaluating the $800,000 price tag?
Again, I do not want to speak about non-technical stories. There is a lot of discussions. I presented my opinion. I believe that if you think about the value of the whole ecosystem of Cardano and the value of time of millions of users, you will come to the natural answer. But please, do you have technical questions?
Okay, technically, the product that you're offering is a product that increases
can I tell something, because I think I've been missed of all the Qs. So I would have a short technical note and another question about data structure.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to. A technical question, yeah, that's a priority.
So,
thank you.
A lot of people that run Daedalus have complained that it's slow to synchronize, but that may be the main factor, and then slow to catch up with the multiple wallets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the question would be, first, do you see the moment that we can handle like 100 wallets on a single node, or what would be the barrier here?
Personally, I do not see any problems with that. So I can give you an example. My objective is to be 10 times quicker than Daedalus, right? And right now, Daedalus takes hours, and with multiple wallets, right, it's a lot. So in my internal experiments, when I benchmark the tool on 10,000 random stake keys, typically it's like 10 minutes. So in a way, during this internal quality assurance procedures, I already benchmarking this on much higher requirements, and it passes this. So I think 100 wallets, definitely not a problem.
And then the second thing is, would that extend if we have 100 XPub wallets? So XPub wallet is basically hierarchical wallet with sub-wallets.
Yeah, I understand you.
Only as a public key.
This comes to the question, right? So what was discussed in the paper. Do all those addresses, right, contain the same key or just few stake keys? So as long as the number of unique stake keys used by those maybe hundreds of unique payment addresses are the same, or like the 3-4 stake keys, and typically this is the reality, right? Users do not use many stake keys. It should work reasonably well. Because of the indices right now, the data by stake key, and this is why it's fast. It can work with payment keys, but there will be a decrease in performance likely by this constant, which is the difference in the average number of payment keys per wallet versus average number of stake keys.
And the final question would be, would it be also possible to decrease amount of resources needed by each wallet node? Because now when you are hosting this on, a cluster with many nodes and many Cardano wallets, it's basically using too much space, right? So there is seemingly a redundancy that prevents large-scale deployment.
Let me rephrase it to understand if I got your question right.
Yeah.
So a scenario, a server or like a personal installation, let's say a desktop PC, right?
No,
and
I
the user
don't mean
has
personal installation. I mean, you have, for example, 100 script addresses or 100 service wallets. They are not private wallets. They are not company wallets. They belong to bots of some kind.
Okay.
React to changes to the of the ledger, and when you want to react in case of 100 wallets and maybe track transactions of several auction centers.
So let's speak about resources here, because we speak about disk space, we speak about memory, right? So RAM, and we speak about compute. So with regards to disk space, it's the 10% I was speaking about, right? For this additional data structure. Now, speaking of RAM, in my view, it should be no and even less. Right now, the whole method, even on this server case with like 48 threads and 24 cores, it can consume just 8 gigabytes of memory compared to Daedalus, which consumes typically 10, 11, or 12, right? The compute can be increased because basically each additional wallet requires more kind of index lookups and additional CPU time. But as long as this is so much dramatically faster than Daedalus, it should be fine. And the question about what is the best next alternative, right? So is the solution I propose the best alternative? In my view, it should be very competitive. So it won't require more disk space. It should not require more memory. It may require more compute time and kind of disk lookups, but they should be kind of quite favorable.
Do you plan to present benchmarks or usage statistics at the later stage?
So for that, I need to define a specific use case, right? My first case was to prove that it's possible to create wallet history and reconstruct it. Why? I'm imagining a new user of Daedalus, right, who just downloaded it. And what is the time from the moment you download it till the moment you can use it? And this makes time to get the data, validate the data, and reconstruct it.
Right.
And in my mind, I was imagining a private user. Why? There are much more of them. And my objective is to save their time, right? So this is why, at the moment, I was mostly focused on index creation time, because this is any installation of Daedalus would need to do. And then that the wallet history reconstruction time for like and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wallets is quick, and it's seconds. So formulating the use case that you present is possible, and likely it's possible to benchmark, but the question is how widespread is this use case? So if it's a very popular use case, likely I would need to include it in my benchmarks. If this is some rare use case, maybe you need to collaborate with me, right? So prepare some benchmarks, I will provide you some questions, and then you can benchmark it for your use case and confirm if it works. And maybe this is the way to kind of forward kind of here. Because right now, in my mind, and the way I kind of structured the proposal, it tries to improve this for the typical users, so for the new users of Daedalus, so for the majority of them. And the majority of users, as I said, they have like wallets with less than 1,000 transactions. They have likely 1, 2, 3, 4 wallets and so on, right? I think you understand my point here.
Yes.
If this is your specific use case, try to formulate it. Send me an email or send me a chat message. Prepare your benchmarks. I'll help you kind of set them up, and then you will know specifically how well it works for your use case.
Yes, I can provide you more data on this. I think it will become more and more common, just like most of us have more than one banking account, for personal users to have multiple addresses. But then also applications will need to help users in certain use cases by, for example, tracking their expat wallet. So the wallet that doesn't have the right to sign anything can just track transactions, and notify them by push that the operation has been done, so they are aware that the transaction has been sent to them. That's one example of how it may work. So you monitor 100 expat wallets and just push notifications. That would increase the convenience of using the wallets, right?
But how many users would need those 100 wallets? So how typical this use case? Because what you described,
each user needs a notification, right? So not everybody wants to like have a server hot in the attic. Somebody would just want to be notified when they have more money on their account, right?
Okay, and how specifically that notification will happen? Within the UI of Daedalus, or using some other communication channels?
Yeah, I thought about old-fashioned Twilio or some encrypted communication channel like chat,
okay,
like Telegram. So basically, Telegram thought that.
Okay, now I understand you. Because I have not thought deeply about this, so maybe you can help me. But the way I understand this is something more related to kind of a light wallet, right? Where there's a central server processing results and identifying users.
Yes.
But I'm trying to solve a situation where a user wants to have the full control over the data and know exactly from which data the information was sent.
What I'm trying to tell, that light wallet also needs something like Daedalus to really work.
Maybe, and I'm totally happy to kind of share the data. The code is open source, but my responsibility to the kind of voters is to focus first on the primary use case I was promising in the proposal.
So that's why I think Daedalus and similar heavy wallets will never die, because for light wallet to really work, you still need some backend that will do a lot of work that Daedalus does anyway.
Okay, but if you have specific use case and you would like to kind of test the code, just let me.
Yeah.
I'll help you set up. It's reasonably simple, right? It's just like 10 minutes, as I said. All you need to do is to Docker, Git, and a local copy of Cardano data. And then you can test it yourself on as many wallets as you like. So,
Yeah.
so I guess
I
like
would
Twitter,
share
maybe.
my contact, and if you have such means of contact,
I think for me, like Telegram, I'm sorry, Telegram, Twitter, right? So personally, I'm email guy, but on Twitter, right now I'm trying to provide phones, like DM me on Twitter, we can exchange email addresses, and then we can have a conversation about this. Or just create an issue on the GitHub, right? And we can get it from there.
Yeah. Cool. I think it's important that we don't forget about these other use cases.
I'm not against this, but please understand, I'm under a lot of pressure to deliver this thing. And my primary audience is kind of users of Daedalus as a personal wallet.
And don't discriminate against bots, please.
You know, I don't want to exclude them, but at the same time, I cannot focus on this without first delivering. So, like, my job is to keep my promise, right? The proposal gets voted. It's a big proposal. It's a challenging proposal. It's ambitious. So it's very important to stay focused to deliver what was promised. Once it's done, likely many things will be possible. But first, I would like to deliver on what was promised. If it's easy to help, I will gladly help you. But please have reasonable expectations of me, right? What is this project? Okay, any more questions?
Just
Before
please
we
respond
technical.
with your contact details.
I'm sorry? I can, let me copy once
Please
again. This.
respond with your contact details, because I don't have them.
Okay, I'll add them to the chat. So I'm sharing a link to the Twitter thread, which announces the changes. So there is a Git repository and the Twitter account. So you can direct message me on Twitter, or you can follow to the Git repository and open an issue on the GitHub. I'm sorry.
So quick
I think I can
question
send you a
to
direct message. Let me do this again to everyone.
okay. A quick question to maybe Chris or Danny can point me in the right direction on this. Who on the IO team is owner of the Daedalus wallet?
Chris, are you with us? Maybe Chris has switched. So
He might have. Yeah, I'm
there
just
is a
trying to
Daedalus
get
team.
contact information for the owner of Daedalus within IO. That would be helpful to get to that apples to apples type comparison. I was reading your milestone report, and your milestone report says 10-time quicker transaction history reconstruction. So I'd actually like to have a conversation with IO with the wallet owner on that. So it's not for you specifically, Alex.
I understand.
Or for Chris and
Yep,
Chris and Danny who are here from
if
IO.
you will be able to get a response and you can publish it or send me a copy, I would actually very much appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That's that part of I think it's an important part of this conversation, and that's the direction I'm heading in, because I think we need that information to move this conversation forward.
I think Kenrick has shared a link.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate or up to date it is, but they do have a link identifying the team working on Daedalus. I just put it in the chat.
Because in the discussions of the project, I met some people, but for the kind of personal reasons, I didn't say that I can share this publicly. There is a product manager, there is a wallet team, and there is a head of kind of engineering. And I think they are not on this list. At least the people with whom I spoke.
Yeah, I'll stand by. I'll just out of band. I'll send the Catalyst team an email requesting that information, and I'll try to. And if I find it, Alex, I'll share it with you as well, of course.
Yes, will be much appreciated. Because here, please understand, maybe I prefer technical questions, but I would like to do a high quality work. And high quality technical works requires review and technical challenges, not abstract one, but specific one. This attack vector doesn't work. This use case doesn't work. And having a better understanding will help me as well deliver a better product.
Of course, absolutely agree. All right.
Okay, I think this is almost 90 minutes. So let's take one or two more questions, and yeah, this will be it for today. And thank you for the interest, right? And if
and thank you, Alex,
might,
for standing up here.
no
Appreciate
worries.
you.
So this is actually, I guess what I would like to see more is more technical or specific questions, right? I understand the abstract concerns, but it's really hard for me to react to them in a specific way, which will be like yes or no, does it work or does it not? And for me, I have like this more engineering mind. It's really important to come to this final understanding of the truth, right? What it is it yes or is it no? So
Yeah,
maybe as my request, if you can bring someone technical with you next time, please do. I'm completely open and transparent. Source code is there, paper is there.
Yeah, thanks. It was a helpful meeting, and at the very least, I think you've presented some really interesting ideas. So it'll be even more interesting over the next couple of months to see how the project evolves, and whether you can get to your proof of concepts.
Thank you, and appreciate the support and your speech about the scientific approach. Really appreciate it. Okay, any final questions before we say goodbye? Okay, then I wish to thank everyone, right? So even though maybe I have reacted in a way that I was trying to defend the project, which is my job, but I appreciate the criticism. Just one request: specifics, right? Because specifics help solve problems. And if you can bring someone technical next time, please do. Because I'm totally open and I intend to deliver high quality product that can really improve the user experience of many in the Cardano ecosystem. Thank you, and till the next time.